All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Brian Stelter from CNN. Delighted to be back in the hot seat, but this time as host and not guest. And I have with me three scarily successful media reinvestors who are managing to make big returns in the eyeball stock market. We're going to talk about the eyeball economy and what some of these new business models are and what's actually working. First up, Chris Best, the co-founder of Substack, who once described Substack as rescuing the smart people from TikTok. Chris, is that working? Is that what you're doing?
It's going well so far.
Yeah?
The eyeball stock market sounds grim, but...
We're going to monetize everything, yes. Next to Chris is Jane Ferguson, who at home has a raft of journalism awards, Peabodys, and Emmys on the shelf, but she's focusing on a new media venture. Jane, what's it called?
Noosphere.
And what is it?
Noosphere is a direct-to-consumer app that basically allows journalists in the field to monetize their work and speak directly to their communities.
So we're going to explore what that is and what that can become. And next to Jane is Tom McTague, who just yesterday started work, brand new role, editor-in-chief of the new Statesman magazine, also known as the Bible of the Left. So this is day 2 for you.
I know, and I'm not in the office already. There's quite a few New Statesman journalists here as well. So
we're thrilled that you're here with us. Tom was previously a political editor at Unheard, one of the biggest sites for political commentary in the UK. What's your mandate now at the New Statesman, Tom?
Well, it's I've taken over from an editor who was in the job for, I think it was 16 years. So I've got to come in, fill those shoes, and sort of lead the New Statesman into a new era with more eyeballs on the site across different platforms, whether that's the website, the physical product that people get delivered by a postman still, or on YouTube or on Substack or emails, newsletters, you name it. We want people to be looking at it.
Great. We're going to hear the whole plan by the end of this brief conversation. Let's start with Substack, because I know so many people in this room are wondering, Chris, is Substack the future for all of us? Are we all end up going to be publishing on Substack? What do you tell people who ask you that question? What lessons does Substack have for the rest of the industry?
Yes, of course.
Hey!
Substack's wonderful. If you don't have the Substack app, you should get it. It's a great thing.
You pointed out to me the app is more popular in the app stores than many traditional news company apps.
And the trajectory is quite steep. And the lesson I would bring is, I think this, the attention economy, the eyeball economy, the fact that people are spending a lot of their time in these apps on your phone that you go to that have sort of like the world at your fingertips, that's a thing that's not going to go back. We're not going to go back in time from that. And to me, the interesting question is, like, how do we kind of make the most of that? How do we pair that with a business model that supports independence? How do we pair that with an incentive structure that helps good things flourish? But the idea that you could opt out of the eyeball economy, as you so grossly call it, I think is mistaken. I think you have to find a way to be a part of it and move to the future.
What's your latest figure for paid subscriptions across all of the titles that are on Substack?
5 million paid subscriptions.
And that's across hundreds of titles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands, in fact.
Do we know how many people are able to make this a living on Substack already?
A lot.
A lot means you fill in these conference rooms. How many?
Yeah, you could fill this conference room.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the leaderboard for U.S. politics on Substack to give us a sense of, what the rankings look like. Who are the most successful, top-performing titles? I find these rankings really interesting because there's a couple of brands up here that didn't exist 3 months ago, right? The Contrarian did not exist until January or February. And then there's other brands like the Bulwark, that are a few years old and are growing fast. What should we learn from a leaderboard like this about what works on Substack? What succeeds on Substack? Don't say everything. What really works?
I mean, I do think that the diversity of different political, persuasions, the diversity of how many different, some of these are fully fledged new media organizations. Some of them are individuals. Heather Cox Richardson is a history professor who's probably one of the highest paid political columnists that I know of. So it can be work across a broad variety of perspectives, a broad variety of formats. I think you just have to have a perspective. You have to have some thing to bring that helps people make sense of the world, that people want in their lives, that tell them not just things they want to know, but sort of like what to pay attention to and what matters.
Okay. Almost like an editor function.
You could call it that.
I mean, we were talking this morning about making meaning, helping people make sense of this world. And you're saying the most successful folks on this list, that is what they're doing. Yeah.
Totally.
So Substack's a platform. Jane, you're trying to build a platform. What made you want to go down this road after 15 years as a foreign correspondent?
15 years on the road. I was in Afghanistan when it fell to the Taliban, and I remember going live every night on PBS. I was lucky enough to work at the NewsHour, and I noticed just my social media was really exploding. And that's, an obvious thing to say in 2025, but at the time, it was revolutionary for me. I'd never experienced a moment where I didn't need a newspaper or a network to reach an audience and have a career. And I had been on the road for so long, and I'd had a first-hand view of the economics of the industry, of what it was to run your own teams in the field, to be a field reporter, really pulling together the products that are actually creating the value for the customer. And I've increasingly been spending time around folks with much bigger brains than me at Princeton, and talking about how tech can really replace an incredible amount of middle and backroom costs of running a news organization. And we would certainly describe ourselves as a platform as well.
Let's take a look at a little teaser of what Noosphere is, what it's becoming as it's about to launch here in the UK. Let's take a look. So talk us through here, Jane, this stream of content.
Yeah, this is a correspondent called Laurel Chor, award-winning former Nat Geo explorer, Nabi Bullis, LA Times, on the road. Effectively, these are just a sample of foreign correspondents who use the app, but we're very much so expanding our political team at the minute. We built tech to put into the hands of reporters and those who love their work. And so all of these journalists now, every single person that you'll see on the app right now has at some point been in a dev call with our developers in San Francisco, looking at how do we make better photo galleries? How do we do audio over the top of them? How do we do great video from the field? And also political reporters in DC. How do we give them tech that reaches audiences where they are, which is on their phones? That's why we're app first. And effectively creating that marketplace right in the middle where we're meeting audiences where we know they want to be, especially from our extensive beta testing, the user experience that feels more like social media, but is actually really high quality and journalists people know and love.
I'm literally downloading the app. I don't want to forget to sign up. The idea here is that you're thinking about young people, I think. You're thinking about younger generations and how they are already wanting to consume the news.
Yes, but we're not looking at just 20-year-olds. We're looking at anything from, in the United States, 60% of 16 to 40-year-olds already pay for or donate to news in some format. But of those 60%, they're twice as likely to pay for an individual that they know and love, a journalist they recognize and want to support, than they are for a brand. And that is an existential issue for news brands.
Right.
But what we really want to do is effectively create the technology, we've created it, that allows journalists to enter the content creator economy. But what's most important is that they're not siloed. They're not competing for the same, $6, $8 a month. What's really important is that once someone brings in their community, they bring in their subscribers, we can track those. We know how people came in, so we know if they came in from this particular journalist or this particular journalist. They keep them, but the subscribers access the entire platform. So it's a better value proposition for users, in terms of they get access to what is an Uber bundle of the world's best reporters.
So that is clearly a bundle model. Chris, is that intention? Do you find that to be intention with the Substack, one title at a time, no bundle model?
It's certainly different.
Yeah. Will there be bundles on Substack over time, you think?
The way that we think about this is the direct subscription relationship is kind of the core of Substack. And so I'm very interested in ways to sort of unlock some of the benefits of bundle economics, but I think the idea that I'm choosing for myself who I'm subscribing to, how I'm allocating my dollars, I actually think that's sort of one of the cores of what we do.
I also think what's interesting about that is it gets to the heart of curation over, basically being spoon-fed. And so what we wanted to do in response to that is when you come on, you have access to everybody, but you actually only follow those that you wish to. So you effectively curate your feed instead of having an algorithm feed it to you.
Right, right. Tom, do you feel like the other two up here are talking a different language?
Well, I mean, I have been listening and thinking, well, I'm the heritage brand here, and I've got a completely different proposition. I've got a completely different challenge. And as editor, I'm one of these people who are sat there with my colleagues trying to curate something for people. But I think what I've got to do and what I saw at the Atlantic when I was there and at Unheard is you've got to somehow bring that heritage brand. You've got to use it. People do trust it. And you've seen brands up there on Substack, new brands that are doing incredibly well, like the Free Press and others. We've got to somehow find that ability to use the brand, the brand of Hitchens and Orwell and all of these great writers, and then bring it into the world that you guys are talking about and use technology and realize that people are consuming things in a different way now. They want to, you see it on YouTube, people slump down at the end of the night and you put the telly on. You don't necessarily put BBC One on anymore. You go to YouTube and then you see who's at the top. I want it to be the New Statesman at the top of the feed, or I want them to receive an email in the morning or at lunchtime or in the evening. We've got to be all over all of this technology because we're gonna need to compete with you guys, or at least sort of be using. I mean, we use Substack to get our journalism across. So we're partly competing, but we're partly going to be relying on you.
You can have gains from trade.
Yeah.
On day 2, you want to tell us more specifics about your digital vision, about where you see the New Statesman going?
Well, look, the digital vision I have is really like a journalistic vision, and I think that is what I've learned over my career. I've seen heritage brands, companies that have really struggled to know how to move from a print publication online. And I think the ones that have failed have abandoned what made them great as a print model, and they've chased clicks, or they've chased just pure traffic. And the ones that I think have done well, and I do think of the Atlantic again in this regard, and also the New Statesman, is where you've kept hold of what made you great, the quality, the reporting, the trust, and you've applied that online. You've applied it with a kind of a much quicker rhythm. So you need to go more quickly. The Atlantic Monthly can't just move online as a monthly publication. The New Statesman can't do that. We can't be a weekly publication of politics and literature like we were in 1913. We can't do that and be every week, but we can have the same quality, and I think that's what people are looking for. And it comes back to like real basics, like we're in the hits business. Jeff Goldberg told me the other day, we're there to break stories, give people information that they didn't have, write the best journalism that is possible. And I think if you do that, people will pay for it. And that's ultimately what we need to do. We need to drive up subscribers.
Coming from Unheard and now running the New Statesman comes from the left, how much will you borrow from the right-wing populist media playbook to get attention?
I think that way lies a little bit of danger if it's just, again, about trying to shout the loudest in a noisy environment. If that's like the strategy, somebody will shout more loudly than you, or you'll shout loudly and you'll have said something stupid and it'll undermine your brand. So I think over time, we have to show that we are the smartest magazine in Britain, and that reputation will draw both the best writers to us who will want to come and work for the New Statesman because it's the coolest place to be. You can write better than anywhere else. You have freedom, and it will draw readers in. And then I think it's about adapting that to the new the new environment, how people are consuming it on Substack and YouTube and elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And how are they consuming on Substack, Chris? I asked you earlier, what's the biggest rival? Who is your challenger out there in the future? Tell the audience what you said.
I think in the long run, our biggest competitor is YouTube.
YouTube. Can we let that sink in for a minute? YouTube is what, the biggest video site on the planet?
because YouTube has the internet scale network that aggregates the attention and helps you find the things you want. And they don't have quite the right model in my mind, but they're maybe the closest of the big platforms, and that they do have a model that actually pays the people that make the things. It's not quite as good as a subscription, as an individual subscription model, which has the benefit of, if you're not shouting the loudest, you're trying to tell the truth, you won't get the most clicks, you won't get the most views, but you will get the most subscriptions. And YouTube doesn't quite get that right, and it is only a video platform, but I think that idea of pairing global scale network with real business model is the magic.
And when you say YouTube, I also think about how you're becoming more video-centric. What more are you going to do to make video more of a key part of Substack?
I wouldn't actually say we're video-centric. I mean, the way that I think of it...
No, not right now. Not today. Definitely not.
But in general, like other platforms got built around a particular format, right? Instagram was pictures, YouTube is video, TikTok is short video. Substack's really not built around a format. It's built around a model, the subscription model, the direct relationship. People can write. We've had podcasts for years that work really well with that. We're adding, video that's working really, really well. Both you can upload it if you have it, or you can do what feels like a FaceTime call from the Substack app and have it turn into a fully produced podcast instantly with AI. It's multi-format, but I think the core is this idea of, in a world of infinite content where I have everything that I could pay attention to all the time, the thing that actually matters is like, who do I trust? How do I want to spend my time?
Jane, what have you learned from Substack as you build out your startup, and what are you maybe not learning? What do you not want to become?
A number of things. It's been very interesting to watch the success of Substack and journalists on it. What we have been most interested in is making sure that journalists aren't, especially as more and more shed from legacy media. I obviously come from a TV background mostly. That journalists aren't having to be siloed and competing ultimately every month for the same subscription dollar from the same folks. The other thing that we started off with as well is that we're actually a closed platform. We're invite only. So we are a curated group of journalists. But more importantly...
In terms of the content creators, people who are on it.
The contributors on it. And also we really just we realized that, journalists as they're shed from legacy media are not... they're effectively squatting in other places that are not actually designed for reporters, whether that's YouTube, social media, or even Substack in itself.
Or TikTok or any of them.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we wanted to build something that is literally built for reporters, which is why they're always in our dev calls. That was really important to us. But most importantly, really, actually, as we launched, and this reflects sort of some of your opinions here, is we wanted to get away from opinion predominantly news. And so we really built this around like very strong analysis, strong interviews. Obviously, the field reporting is what the pedigree that myself and my co-founder, Seb Walker, come from. So we actually came out and are out right now with our only hard and fast rule is no opinion. In part because it's very loud out there, opinions pretty much free everywhere you turn. And we feel like that's pretty saturated. I also think one other thing that has been fascinating to watch is that opinion models of newsletters or channels on YouTube tend to get a very quick hit and then level off pretty quickly in terms of subscriber numbers or eyeballs. And so we're really looking at a sustainable, real business model for a platform. I think you got to have more than just opinion.
Right, when I'm hearing business models, I'm thinking, Tom, you said you're the heritage brand. I'm the other legacy media guy up here. I'm thinking about these big institutions like CNN. I'm thinking about the Atlantic and the New Statesman. I'm wondering, is it all just going to slice up into individual brands? Is it all just going to evaporate into individual brands? I don't think it is, but you could see that as one potential future based on the conversation we're having up here. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the case, because if you go back and have a look at that, the list there that you had on Substack, there are a fair few brands on there.
There are.
And they're quite clear what they stand for, each one of those, particularly like the Free Press. You know what it stands for. And so I think the brand has to be clear about who it is, why you want to subscribe, what it is that it's giving you. And I think if it comes confused about that, if it doesn't know who it is, and the readers or the viewers don't know, then they're going to start turning off. And I think that the most successful individuals are brands themselves, aren't they? That's what they've been so successful at. Mehdi Hassan or others, like they are very clear about who they are and who their audience is.
But a lot of that might veer into opinion, Jane. Do you wonder how big the market could be for news as opposed to views in the product you're creating?
The question to ask yourself is, when you're looking at how big is the market, is what are people going to pay for? Will they pay for opinion, or will they tune into opinion? In which case, of course, then you're headed into a ad revenue model, which, as we all know in the United States, is tanked for years now. And so I think a really important question is value proposition. There's always going to be space for opinion. Really high quality punditry there's clearly still a market for it, but it's pretty saturated. I think that the ability to really combine that with incredible reporting and field reporting is going to be the sweet spot in terms of the value that you're actually providing people. And I also think so long as ultimately you're tapping into what we know audiences and consumers tell us all the time they want, which is transparency and authenticity. And sometimes that's opinion, but a lot of the time that's just explaining who you are and how you came at this story.
Is that what works best in your experience, Chris? I know Substack is 100 different things to 100 different people. There are parenting Substacks. For every topic you want, there are many Substacks. But when it comes to news and politics adjacent topics, is it authenticity? Is it transparency? What are the values that you find break through?
Yeah, I think, and maybe the thing that's common between the politics and the food and parenting and science and a million other things is having a distinct perspective, having kind of like, the same thing you're saying with the brand. It's like I have some perspective that you're coming for. You're signing up to have me curate some of your attention and world. And that point of view, I think, is the thing that people will pay for. In my experience, people will pay for opinion if it falls in that bucket. I think that's ultimately what people want. I mean, even if you're doing reporting, the thing that you want at the end of the day is not a disembodied set of facts. It's a way to help me make sense of the world or feel like I understand something.
Mm-hmm. What do people get wrong about Substack? What do journalists get wrong? What do you think is the misunderstanding about it?
I mean, one thing I laugh
Maybe there are none, but if there are.
Journalists get everything right all the time. I've never had to battle any misconceptions. I mean, I think one that's interesting is at any given time, people will often think, oh, Substack's really blowing up right now for thing X that I'm really familiar with, and therefore that's everything the platform is. And so there's a big sort of US politics moment happening on Substack right now, which is wonderful. We love it. It's huge. It's important. It's still like a minority of what's on Substack. There is this massive universe of stuff. I think that's maybe the biggest.
Tom, last 2 minutes we have. Biggest challenge you face in your brand new job? And you're going to day 3 tomorrow in the office?
Oh my God. What is it?
I saved the hard one for last.
I think it's ultimately it's driving up subscriptions. That is the fundamental challenge of my job, and I think most of my kind of competitors. It's how do you move into a world where you've got a regular number of users who are coming to you and they think that what you're producing is good enough to pay for it regularly, because that is that has been shown to be the only sustainable way in the long run that you're going to do good journalism, and that's what we want. We're producing something unique every week. We're producing great essays about politics and literature, and we have a really valuable spot there. So it's how do I get that to as many people as I can?
Yeah.
And as I said from the beginning, on what formats? And there's going to be so many different ways that we're going to do that.
Jane, I look at my kids sometimes, they're 5 and 7. I worry, what in the heck are they going to do? How are they going to navigate this news environment? You have a baby on the way, so where do you find optimism? How do you find optimism about where your child will someday get the news in this overwhelming, saturated environment?
I'm super optimistic.
Really?
Massively so.
Love it.
I'm not optimistic for a lot of legacy media brands, but certainly for...
Okay, you had to work that in there. Okay. All right, Jane.
That's the wrong room for that. Sorry.
That's okay.
But I am very optimistic about journalism. People seek it out constantly. The social media accounts of journalists are exploding. And also, I would argue, I think that there's a real prejudice against young news consumers, and I find them to be some of the most circumspect, with a healthy dose of cynicism. Many of them are, checking things, talking amongst themselves, sharing things. I actually think young consumers of the news are extremely smart. And I've been lucky enough to teach journalists at Princeton, and I find them to be extremely circumspect. So I'm very, very optimistic.
The kids are all right. I love that as a finale for this session. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to our guests. Thank you so much.